Dear viewers, welcome back from this report. Of course, in the report, we knew more about our guest for this evening, who is Oraib Alfozan, founder and CEO of the Art of Language for Training and Consultancy, language and leadership coach. Welcome to Hala Kuwait. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Rita.
So to start out in the beginning, you're a language coach. So can you explain to us more about language coaching and what it's like to be, basically?
Sure. So language coaching is more relevant to communication skills when we're thinking about, okay, how are we going to into that interview? How are we going to communicate effectively at work, especially now in the education sector between teachers and students. So I basically help my clients reach their language goals accordingly.
So it's not only to do with the language when it comes to linguistics, like grammar. So it honestly, when I first read language coach, I thought, you know, teaching someone a language. Yeah. So it does differ.
It does differ, and it has elements of that, but it's not the entire picture. So I look at individuals as well as my clients holistically. So I'm focusing more about how are they going to use the language in an effective manner when it comes to work, when it comes to education, when it comes to businesses as well.
Right. So we're taking someone's language and making it formal, work appropriate, and just to create maybe a better conversation at work?
Absolutely. So strategic communication is actually very much taken for granted nowadays. And how are you going to get your message across to the person you're speaking to in an effective manner? This makes a huge difference.
Definitely. It could make or break a business deal, honestly. And I'm glad that you are really focusing on that and being able to help a lot of people maybe reach their goals at work using their language. So what inspired you to become a language coach? I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, so I actually started off as a teacher, and I enjoy teaching a lot, instructing and everything. It's been something that's been a personal mission of mine. Then I was introduced 2 years ago to the world of coaching, quite frankly. And here I realized the tools that I learned during my coaching journey can be applied in education and training.
Right.
And so now using them in hand, it's really helping my clients make a difference.
Perfect. So were you actually life coaching in the beginning and then transitioned to language coaching?
No,
or is there any similarities between these two?
I guess you could say that, because when it comes to life coaching, you're looking at the person as a whole, but my goal in each session is based on their language goal itself. So what do you want as per the language? For some people, it's starting from scratch. For some people, they need it for work. Some people, they want it to be better educators in the classroom.
Definitely. So what does language and leadership, we can say, coach, specialize in?
So you can't have one without the other. So I would say in terms of language and leadership coaching, it's more to be an effective leader, you have to know how to use the language in an effective manner. You have to know how to communicate with yourself, your members, your teams. And it also talks a little bit about your self-talk. What's your personal communication like between you and yourself?
So how are these two related? I can understand that they go hand in hand together, but how did these two things come together?
So when you look at leaders, it's not just business owners or managers or bosses. It's also educators, parents, family members, people in leadership roles. When you're thinking about language, what kind of language do they use among these different groups? So it's quite important to see the relevance and context when you're speaking. So it's not enough just to acquire the language. It's more about how do you use it in an effective manner.
Definitely. And I think you, coming from an education background, really does help you when it comes to coaching people, because some people might have the knowledge but are not able to get it across maybe to the student. So I think it's a perfect combination. But when it comes to language and leadership coaching, how do these two things support education systems and even businesses?
So in terms of these kind of things, we're looking more about how to get the message across. Especially my specialty is in English. And as English for second language learners, you have a context issue. They rely heavily on translation. They rely heavily on, okay, what's the grammar rules, but why doesn't this apply to this? But when you go through the coaching sessions and leadership sessions, it helps a lot in terms of how are you going to manage in the classroom. Okay, your students are second language learners. However, how are you going to get the message across where it hits just the right spot? In meetings as well, presentation skills, public speaking skills, they all go hand in hand. And what we've discovered throughout this journey is most of the challenges people are facing with languages is a mindset challenge or psychologically based. it's about reboosting their self-esteem, their
Yes.
confidence in learning the language and using it as well.
Definitely, and I think you mentioned something really important, that yes, we can use online translation tools sometimes to help us in different things we're doing, but things do get lost in translation.
Absolutely.
And it's very unfortunate because some words in English could mean an array of things, honestly.
Absolutely.
And placing it in the wrong sentence could, you know, really break the conversation in the worst way possible. So why do we need a language coach? I think that's something maybe a lot of people are thinking while you're talking about coaching.
So it's more like, imagine going to an interview and you really want to get a successful outcome for that. You would need to know exactly what kind of questions you might be asked. Like, for example, in this kind of situation,
Yes.
how are you going to get the message across in which people can be receptive to that?
Yes, for sure. And I think it's really important. A lot of people do focus on these kind of conversations, for sure. So what's the best and fastest way to learn a language? People have tried anything and everything, you know, online courses, videos. Some people have even done it just at home by watching TV and different series and even sometimes reading. But what's the right way to learn a language really fast?
So I have to focus on the fast part.
Yes.
There is no shortcut when it comes to learning a language. It's more about practice. It's
Yes.
practice, 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 using the language on a frequent basis. Whether it's turning your phone into the English setting, for example, to kind of just be able to navigate that, or ordering in a restaurant. Being able to use the language helps you.
Yes, definitely. It's those small things. So people that actually have gone through these steps, we're actually smart. You know, sometimes when someone says, I'm learning through changing my settings or these things, our reaction is like, seriously, go get a course. But when you're forced to have to understand a different language, you will learn it. So you talked a bit about family, and I really want to know what benefits can parents and even our country get out of language coaching? Would you recommend that parents maybe have a language coach for their teenage children?
Well, yeah, I actually do have a lot of clients in the teenage age, especially in high school and middle school. And it really helps them in terms of gaining the skills. So what we do in these sessions, especially for that age group, we teach them how to use the tools available in order to help with their language acquisition in terms of applications that they can use, because now there's technology to help with a lot of things. Your thesaurus is with you in your phone. So how can you use all these tools to better improve your skills? So
I think that's really great that parents are actually focusing on that, because back in the day, you know, we really didn't have that kind of option. You know, we will learn the language in school and that's about it. We didn't have the internet. So now people have a lot of options and a lot of help by professionals like you. So what's your advice to people that are actually struggling with learning a language? You know, they've tried everything. They've gone to classes, they've watched series, they've read books. What's their plan?
So my advice, honestly, to everyone is try your best not to let it get to you when people make fun of you for throwing out the wrong word, or if you mispronounce something, or you use something in the wrong context, you're still learning.
Exactly.
So learning is a lifelong process, and I sincerely try to benefit my clients by teaching them that it's okay to get it wrong sometimes, but don't stop.
Definitely.
That's what helps.
And I think that's what holds a lot of us back. So going to private schools, we do learn more than one language. So other than Arabic and English, it's French. But trust me, if we do end up in France, we're not using anything we studied because we're scared of people's reactions, you know, when it comes to our pronunciation or the context, the way we use it. So I think that's great advice that you just gave us. So you're interested in more than one thing. So away from education and language, you're also interested in art. What sparked your interest in art and drawing?
Honestly, art is also a form of language to me. It's a way of expressing yourself. So I personally, when it comes to the arts, I consider it with terms of language, I consider it with drawing, I consider it with painting. All of these things are lumped in.
And I think lately I've met a lot of artists that are actually focusing on digital art, which is very new to me. You know, we're used to the traditional art. What is your focus? Do you prefer digital art over traditional art that you physically make?
Well, I like both, but I have to say the digital aspect of it has its advantages.
Right.
I've actually started designing course books, programs, and journals through digital art itself, and it's become such an incredible journey, honestly.
That's amazing. So you've been able to use digital art to your benefit in different fields that you actually work in, right? So do you think that drawing and languages are related? Because I see you're really focused on art too, as well as you know, working in language?
Yeah, I think it's definitely related, right? Even the art of expressing yourself.
Yes.
It's a form. That's why we have poetry. That's why we have very talented, you'll see public speakers, how they can spin a story in a beautiful way. So it's definitely interrelated.
That's amazing. And would you ever consider to actually start giving art classes in the future?
I actually did consider doing something for younger kids in terms of teaching grammar through art.
That's really nice.
Because kids nowadays are more hands-on, so if you kind of get them to relate to what they're learning through that medium, I think that there can be a huge benefit there.
Definitely. I think in school the most times that we actually learn something and still remember it when there was an interaction with the thing. It wasn't just written on a board and we had to learn it and leave, you know. So some things do stick with kids.
Absolutely. And also, you know, people have different learning styles. You can't just do one medium and expect it to get across the board to everyone.
Definitely.
So there's, you know, audio, visual, kinesthetic learners. So they have to have their hands on into something.
For sure.
Especially younger kids.
I think that's really important, being able to express ourselves, if it was through language or art, is something that's really important. So when it comes to expressing ourselves and maybe needing a language coach, by what age do you think that, you know, someone should start with language coaching?
I would say when they start in late middle school, early high school, that would be the probably best time, simply because here they're starting to get a role of, okay, school is starting to weigh a little bit more, but I want them to understand that there's more importance than just your grades and just certain things. There's also how are you going to go through life? How are you going to deal with life after school? Your university, your work, your job. How do you want to present yourself to the world? So that's the whole point of it.
I definitely agree with you, because I think school is a safe space for us. You know, for the next few years, we know we're going to be in the same place. But as soon as that's over, you're out in the world. You might be traveling for university, and that's when you need your language the most. So I think that's a perfect time to start. Do you have any final words or even advice for anyone watching or someone even wanting to become a language coach?
Honestly, I think this would be something teachers can actually get into. And applying it into classrooms. And I actually do training programs for educators in this. And how can you use language coaching in your own classrooms? Because this helps get your students to understand it more.
Definitely.
So I definitely would advise people to kind of just forget what people have to say, forget the mean comments, forget the ones who make fun of you, just learn it anyway and keep trying.
Definitely keep going, and thank you so much for being with us, Oraib. You did a great job explaining to us what language coaching is and how important it actually is for society. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Dear viewers, we had with us Oraib Alfozan, founder and CEO of the Art of Language for Training and Consultancy, language and leadership coach, of course. And up next, we have a report on the principles of robotics. Stay tuned.